Joe, do you want me to do the MLB show for you so you can do all of this? Okay, thanks, man. No worries. Welcome, NFL opening line report. I am not Drew Martin, but I'm going to try to fill in the best I can for Drew Martin. I'm Steve Merril, guest host this week for opening line report, and I'm excited to be here because we're talking football, as we've talked about for a few weeks. But that means regular season is ever so closer. Teddy Covers. College football starts this week officially. NFL regular season starts in a couple weeks, but the preseason finishes this week. Final week, week 3, the final week, because there's only 3 weeks this year of the preseason. Teddy Covers, as always, opening line report. We're going to break down all 16 NFL games, quick hit fashion, so you can get in, get out, get the information you need, know where the line's open, know where they've moved already as of Monday. We've had some big moves already. And more importantly, where are they going to be later in this week when these games kick off? Teddy, welcome to the show as always. How was your weekend? And I think we got a little Monday Night Football on tap, too, before we get to the opening line report. We got Jacksonville, New Orleans national TV game tonight for $9 Monday, wagertalk.com.
Yeah, we had a winning weekend for the clients in both the NFL preseason and in MLB action. So it was a good weekend. We cashed a 5% big ticket selection on the Chiefs to open it up. And then, all's well. That ends well. It was a solid weekend. No complaints. When it comes to Monday Night Football tonight, I am in play on the total for tonight's game. And I did a free play already on the side. I will tweet that out immediately after the show. So you guys can get my opinion on the side tonight for Monday Night Football. For the total, you got to pay $9 for it. $9 Mondays over at WagerTalk and SportsMemo.com.
That's right. He actually, Teddy did break down the side, the big game breakdown on Wager Talk today, which I also just guest hosted with him. And of course, that's on Wager Talk TV right here on YouTube. You can watch it anytime, 24/7. And $9 Monday, WagerTalk.com. All baseball and football best bets tonight. $9 at $9 Monday, wagertalk.com. Let's get right into it, Teddy. We have 16 preseason games. And of course, it's an unusual season because this is week 3, but it's also the final week of the preseason. Normally, this is the dress rehearsal week. This is usually the most meaningful week of the preseason, but a lot of teams already went through the dress rehearsal last week in week 2. But I have a feeling some of them might do it a little more than others this week. And we have seen a lot of lines jump around so far. We're going to go down here in schedule order, rotation order. And we're starting on Friday. No games this Thursday. All games start this Friday, August 27th. Indianapolis Colts, 7 o'clock Eastern kickoff at the Detroit Lions. Colts open to -4 with a total of 31.5. Looks like this total's maybe risen a little bit already, Teddy.
Yeah, I mean, the Lions have looked pretty bad their first 2 preseason games. Certainly, they came through the back door and got, I'm not going to call it a miracle backdoor cover, but if you got the Lions against the Steelers plus the points this past week, and you may want to send a Christmas card to David Blau, who played well in the second half for Detroit in a game that they were absolutely dominated. The Steelers scored on 6 of their first 7 possessions against Detroit's defense, and offensively, Tim Boyle, the starter, is 7 of 15, 44 yards passing for Boyle. Quote from Boyle. Obviously, we didn't have a few guys go, but we can't lead on that as a crush. We should have done a better job in the first half executing. There's no way of getting around that. I'm not extremely pleased with how we played in that first group. Of course, the Lions outgained 285 to 65 before halftime. So wasn't pretty for Detroit, and the markets are reflecting that, here with the Colts coming as favorite, although we have seen a little bit of Detroit money already, because it's not like Indies look good so far this preseason. And here's a quote from Sam Ellinger. Ellinger and Jake Eason split snaps over the weekend. Ellinger had some struggles. He threw a couple of picks. It wasn't pretty. But his quote, "We're both such young guys. We're trying to develop ourselves and learn as much as possible. Understand this is a marathon, not a sprint. Hopefully we're both able to have long careers. It's just a small step in that journey." What Ellinger is saying is that as the QBs, our QB room is not ready right now. That is something I have to do. I think with the early Lions money. Carson Wentz back at practice this week for Indy. He is not expected to play in the preseason finale for the Colts, and the early Lions money reflective of that.
Yeah, once again, not only are the Lions not looking good, but the Colts pulled the upset of the Minnesota Vikings, who now are 0-2 this season in the preseason, but had been on a 20-5 straight-up run under Mike Zimmer, even though they've gone 0-2 this year. So Colts off an impressive win, I guess you could say, and then the Lions obviously not looking good. So Not a surprise, the Colts open as a 4-point road favorite. I'm seeing some 3.5s out there now here early on Monday, so we'll see where that line settles when this game kicks off Friday night. Another game Friday night at 7:30 Eastern is the Philadelphia Eagles at the New York Jets. Jets opened as a 3-point favorite. That line has moved up to 4 now in a lot of locations. Total opened 33.5. That is holding steady. So we've seen a little bit of early money coming on the New York Jets so far at home against the Eagles, Teddy.
Yeah, and let's start with the Philly side of the equation. The Eagles are 0-2 in the preseason. They just lost 35-0 to New England. They played without Jalen Hurts, who was on the field for warm-ups and then supposedly got sick. He seemed just fine when he was dancing during the warm-ups, but Hurts sat. Then it was Flacco and Mullins, and I mean that game was over before it started. The Eagles rested everybody. New England picked apart their backups. Nick Sirianni after the game wasn't amused. Quote, just because we're not playing our starters or showing our looks, that's no excuse. You want to compete. They got booed off the field at halftime. They're sitting out, I don't know about Jake Elliott this week, their kicker. And of course, when a team doesn't have a kicker, when you start talking about backing them in a preseason game, it gets some funky scenarios. Now, of all the teams that's getting credit for performances this last weekend that were not anywhere near as good as they were as they looked on paper, the Jets win over the Packers. I mean, Zach Wilson hit some throws. He did. He was throwing to wide open receivers. The Packers played soft zones with backup defenders, and they blew a bunch of coverages. And at the end of the game, the mainstream commentary is Zach Wilson's ready. The Jets are loaded. And it's like, no. Here's a quote from Matt LaFleur after the game. And I put the Green Bay quote in here with the Jets. Okay. LaFleur, quote, it was a great look at a lot of our younger players versus some of their starters. And I thought our guys went out there and competed hard. We made way too many mistakes to win the game. And we're always trying to win, whatever. I'll take the under on that, LaFleur. But the bottom line is, even the Packers coach was saying, we didn't care, we didn't show up, yada, yada. But the marketplace looked at the Jets like it's meaningful. I'm not convinced that's the case. I'm surprised that the Jets have been held at 4. I would not be shocked at all to see some Philadelphia money before kickoff, especially given the injury barrage that the Jets have suffered over the last week, where they've lost multiple frontline starters, Carl Lawson, Connor McDermott, Jared Davis. The backup QB, Mike White, got hurt. He left with a rib injury. Don't know if he's going to be able to play this week. So once the injuries start to come for a team in the preseason, they tend to shut it down. The Jets might be false favorites here.
Yeah, I mean, an angle that's worked for decades. The motivation's the key to. We talk about quarterback rotations, but it's all about motivation. Does a team want to win more than the other in the preseason? And when you get shut out 35-0, it's kind of like a blowout loss in the NBA playoffs. We often see teams outperform. So you have that working for you with the Eagles. And like you said, the Jets actually closed as a favorite last week at Green Bay, opened as a dog, closed as a favorite, won that game. So it's very much like the Indianapolis game we talked about. One team off a really bad show and another team outperforming. So we'll see where this line settles. Once again, Jets have gone from 3 to 4 point favorites early this week. Total is held steady at 33.5. Next game on Friday night as well. We're sticking to Friday's card here. Friday, August 27th. This game also at 7:30 Eastern is Pittsburgh at Carolina. And a heavy line move in this one, if I'm not mistaken. In fact, you have to do a double take, right? Pittsburgh opened 4, but now they're +3. I had to do a triple take when I saw that. I assumed it was a typo, but it's not. Pittsburgh Steelers have gone from a 4-point favorite to a 3-point dog in less than a day here at the beginning of the week. Total has also moved substantially from 34 up to about 35.5, 36 now. Teddy, fill us in on this Pittsburgh-Carolina game. Why that crazy line move on both the side and a little bit on the total?
And this is disappointing, I got to say. It was 1 when this show started. It's 3 right now. So the money's pouring in on Carolina, and it's going to pour in on Carolina because the Panthers are taking this game seriously. Matt Rule talked about it last week. He said, we're not worried about this. We're worried about next week. And I'm not convinced that got to the odds makers or they paid attention to it when it opened. But the Panthers are interested in this week. Sam Darnold got his cup of coffee. Played 1 series against Carolina, but and actually they moved the football, and then they got stuffed at the goal line, and then Darnold went to the bench, and then Greer came in and played well. P.J. Walker had a rough time in the second half against Baltimore's defense. He really did. I thought P.J. Walker's a guy who I like, but the Ravens were blitzing, and Walker was confused, and it wasn't pretty for the Panthers. Matt Rule after the game, we just weren't going to run our base stuff. we just were going to run our base stuff. We didn't have our goal line packaged out there and all of those little things. So there wasn't game planning. And Sam Darnold, quote, we should be able to score with our base plays. We should have punched it in. So Panthers 1 of 7 in the red zone, scoring touchdowns in the preseason. There's urgency for Carolina in this game, and the markets are reflecting that. Whereas Pittsburgh, I mean, they're not going to play any better than they did. Roethlisberger had a perfect passer rating, 158.3. Talked about how he liked working with Matt Canada, talked about how the new offense is intriguing him, et cetera, et cetera. They scored on 6 of their first 7 possessions, won the yardage battle in the first half, 285-65. Mike Tomlin after the game, I thought the effort was excellent. So the thought process here and all the Carolina money is Pittsburgh's fat and happy. Panthers are coming to play. Unfortunately, this line's moved a touchdown in the last 3 hours. And the good bets in the Panthers have come and gone already. It's really frustrating. I'm very disappointed in this number.
And once again, just because it's gone from +4 to -3, that +4, as you said, was never the true number. The odds makers just set a bad opening line on this game. Or at least if they didn't have the information, they wouldn't have set it that way now based on what they know. So it's a little bit of a strange 7-point move. But the key for me now is it's on that key number of 3. In the regular season, about 9 to 10% of the time, NFL favorites win by exactly 3. So the difference between -1 to -3, as we're doing this show right now live, has happened in person. That's the big move to me, which might keep you off this game, especially at 3.5 or more. We'll see where that settles. But once again, Carolina taking the game serious Friday night against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then our final game for Friday night, before we head into Saturday, Friday night, August 27th at 8 o'clock Eastern, the Minnesota Vikings, who I mentioned earlier, a team that was on a 20-5 straight-up run under Zimmer, now 0-2 as favorites this year, losing both outright at Kansas City Friday night, 8 o'clock Eastern. Chiefs opened as a 4-point favorite. Minnesota now is a 3.5-point dog. A little bit of money has come in on the Vikings. I would think some of that has to do with the Zimmer angle, which has not worked this year. Total's gone from 34.5 to 35. So once again, Teddy, a little bit of money on Minnesota and the over so far at Kansas City.
Yeah, I mean, the Zimmer angle hasn't worked in years. Zimmer's 6-8 in his last 14 against the spread. He's no Harbaugh. I'm going to talk about the new Harbaugh a little bit later in the show, a guy who's no one's paying any attention to, and the money came in against him again this past weekend in a game where they won, covered, dominated. But Zimmer's preseason success, that's from 2016, 2017. That is not relevant for 2021. Again, a losing record over the last 3 preseasons combined. Minnesota had 8 first downs in their game against Indy. They were 2 of 13 on third down, 0 of 1 on fourth down. They were +2 in turnovers and still lost to the favorite. They had their starting offensive line out there. Cousins played 3 series, and they still lost to the favorite. Cousins, quote, I feel good. I feel really good. I felt really clean tonight, just as far as seeing coverage and getting through my reads. I felt like we moved quickly. I felt like it was a really smooth operation, and that was encouraging. Of course, Adam Thielen only played 1 series. He took a hit. He sat. Jefferson didn't play in that ballgame, so it wasn't like Cousins was throwing to his starting White House, and he finished in 7 pass attempts. He had 23 yards and a sack. So nothing to be particularly excited about. Mike Zimmer was concerned. They finished just 6 of their 23 preseason possessions in opposing teams' territory. Quote, Zimmer, we really don't have much rhythm going on there. We'll see if Cousins gets more playing time here. Kansas City didn't execute in the red zone particularly well, but Patrick Mahomes, 2 15-play drives last week. One of them ended in a field goal. One of them ended in an interception. Mahomes, quote, it felt good. I thought we had some good drives, a few long drives where we got to run the ball, throw the ball, do all different types of stuff. Andy Reid, quote, all in all, I was pleased with the defense and how they played. All in all, I thought it was a good game. Offensively, we had a lot of yards, a lot of plays, and probably could have had more points. So it's not like Reid is necessarily, he's happy off the performance last week. It's not a game that KC is taking particularly seriously. Let's see what Minnesota is going to do with Cousins. They might be live dogs this week as well.
And once again, that's the final game for Friday night, final of 4 games. Kansas City's gone from a 4-point favorite to a smaller 3.5-point home favorite here on Monday. We'll see how that plays out in the next few days. Let's transition to Saturday, though. Huge card on Saturday, as always. We do have 7 games on the board, 1 daytime matinee affair, Saturday afternoon, August 28th at 1 o'clock Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. Green Bay at Buffalo. We talked earlier, Teddy, about the Patriots. They had the biggest margin of cover last week of any team, 35 points. However, the second close, 36 rather, they won by 35 as a dog, 1-point dog. Buffalo was second, though, about a 30.5-point cover as a dog, 41-15 over the Bears. So far in this game, we saw the line open for heavy money on Buffalo, up to 7.5 now. Once again, crossing a lot of key numbers, 4, 6, 7. The total has also moved a little bit from 34.5 up to 35. A big move on Buffalo, Teddy, from 4 to 7.5 after a huge showing last week. Do they continue that momentum this week against Green Bay on Saturday afternoon?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, because certainly something with the Bills this past week and their success in Chicago had to do with Mitch Trubisky going back to his old team. And Trubisky had an axe to grind, and they let him grind that axe, and the game was over well before halftime, with Trubisky showing that he's better than Andy Dalton, to the surprise of no one. Meanwhile, on the Green Bay side of the equation, look, the Packers didn't dress 32 players against the Jets. They set out 30 in the opener. We're not likely to see Aaron Rodgers this week. We're not going to see Jordan Love, who hurt his throwing shoulder. Last week, it was all Kurt Benkert. And you watched Benkert in college. So did I. At no point in his college career were we thinking, yeah, this guy's going to make it at the NFL level. He's not, and he isn't. So Green Bay hasn't cared at all the first 2 preseason games. They might not care for this one. I don't know how much Buffalo cares, but here's the story with the Bills. I teased it earlier. Sean McDermott, very quietly, now 8-1 against the spread his last 9 preseason games. And we talk about why Buffalo is winning these games and covering these points. It's not just because they have a deep roster, and they do. Their 53 is as deep as any in the NFL. It really is. But it's also the mentality of the defense, that second string defense on the field in the second half, that third and fourth string defense on the field in the second half. When the third and fourth string defenders are blowing up the line of scrimmage and keeping opposing teams from doing anything, like the Ravens have been able to do, like the Bills have been able to do, that bodes well for point spread success. And a good organization that is deep defensively, like the Buffalo Bills, again, 8-1 ATS the last 9 in the preseason. And I haven't heard anyone talking about McDermott as a bet-on coach in August. Right now he is. The market's not necessarily reflecting that at the open, but we've seen a whole lot of Buffalo money reflecting that already here on Monday morning.
I love it. I was anxiously awaiting who the new coach was. I never thought it'd be my former classmate from 20-plus years ago, William Mary. And I've known McDermott for over 25 years, actually. He's a very intense individual. He was a walk-on and became team captain by his senior year. He's a wrestler from Pennsylvania, so it does not surprise me that he takes the preseason seriously. He's always taken everything very serious, so that's interesting. The one thing about Buffalo, though, we'll see if it continues when they continue to have success like last year. Those teams often don't take the preseason as seriously going forward. Tomlin's a very intense guy that went to William Mary with me as well. He doesn't need to probably win as much, but McDermott's still building that program at Buffalo. I love it. Yeah, 8-1 ATS his last 9, and it's fitting that we transition, Teddy, from Sean McDermott, the new Harbaugh, to the current Harbaugh, the Buffalo Bills, now to the Baltimore Ravens. Ravens opened 3.5 at the Washington football team. By the way, your man Gabe Morency and I narrowed it down. The Redskins have announced they now have a final list of 3 teams. They won't say what the 3 nicknames are. There's 8 nicknames to choose from. Football team is still on there. My choice, Red Hogs. Let's push that one. I think it should be Red Hogs, but I digress. Let's look at 3.5 here. It has not moved. So they've set the line with Harbaugh being great in the preseason as a 3.5-point road favorite. It's holding steady at 3.5. Now, I am seeing a 4 out there. I'm seeing some 3.5s minus $1.15. So it looks like this Baltimore line might go from 3.5 to 4. Total has gone from 31.5 to 32.5. So a little bit of move to the over and holding steady at 3.5. Baltimore on the road. Do you dare fade Harbaugh, who's, what is it now, 18 or 19 straight wins?
So here are the quotes about that. All right, 19-game winning streak now in the preseason. I tried to fade him this week, and it was the single dumbest, as dumb a bet as I've made all year. The only preseason loser that I had this week. And I should have played it first half, which was dumb not to play it first half. But even that, here's the quotes, all right? I didn't get these quotes before the game, but I got these quotes after the game, unfortunately. The Ravens just tied Vince Lombardi's Green Bay Packers, who had a 19-game exhibition winning streak from 1959 to 1962. Harbaugh, quote, "I believe everything in life has meaning. It's something only one other team has done, the Vince Lombardi Packers, and I think that is notable." Tyler Huntley, quote, "It's a good feeling to have. You can see the type of culture we have in his organization. We strive to win every time we step in the field. It shows how much depth we have. There's a quote from Will Greer talking about the Panthers quarterback, talking about Baltimore's defense. Quote, they do a lot of different things, probably more exotic than anything I've seen in the preseason. Exotic blitzes bode well for covering point spreads in August, even when Lamar Jackson doesn't play. Washington's looked just fine, in the preseason. They really have. Fitzpatrick looks solid. In terms of a QB rotation, it's a bet on QB rotation. I don't think this line goes through the roof for Baltimore. All that said, the Ravens are the only team that you can count on taking money every week here in the preseason. And if you like Baltimore, I'd probably bet them sooner rather than later.
Yeah, once again, the odds makers are expecting that. They open them as a 3.5, over that key number. But as I mentioned, there is a 4 out there. I'm seeing some 3.5s minus $1.15. So very unlikely, at least as of Monday as we do this show, that it's heading back down to 3. And I can't imagine any kind of information is going to come in that would lower it to 3. So 3.5 is probably the best you're going to get on the Baltimore Ravens as they look to make history. And another very intense individual, Vince Lombardi, Sean McDermott, Harbaugh, Vince Lombardi, intense individuals to say the least, and they've been good in the preseason. We're going to talk about a team that was very good in the preseason last week, and that was the Tennessee Titans. Just crushed the defending Super Bowl champs. Tennessee opened this week as a 3-point favorite at home against the Bears. That game kicks off at 7 p.m. Eastern on Saturday evening. And it is now down to 2.5, though. So the money has gone from 3 down to 2.5 on that very key number. Tennessee now just a 2.5-point favorite. Total holding pretty steady at 35. I do see a brief 35.5 out there, but a little bit of money here against Tennessee, Teddy. And once again, the Buccaneers 0-2 against the spread this year in the preseason. They were a favorite last week and get blown out 34-3 by Tennessee. Was that a combination of Tennessee being really good, Tampa not carrying, or probably most likely a little bit of both, I guess?
Yeah, and the breaks went the Titans' way in that game and ended up being a blowout. The box score was not a blowout in that game, but obviously the box scores do not equate to final scores necessarily. Now, look, this is not a mature line on this game, and I'm not exactly sure why many books kept it off the board this morning. So there were 3s. Now it's basically shifted to 2.5. The first bet's coming on the dog here, and I can understand why. The Bears destroyed in the first half last week. 19 first half first downs for Buffalo, 4 for Chicago. The first 4 Andy Dalton drives this preseason all failed to gain a first down. Dalton and the first string offense booed off the field in Chicago. They already want Justin Fields. And of course, Fields, 19 pass attempts, plus 2 other dropbacks where he got sacked, a net of 75 yards. There's urgency for Chicago. The urgency may not be there for Tennessee. I don't know yet if Fitzpatrick is going to play this week. He didn't play this last week. It was all Barkley and Woodside. Bruce Arians, quote, they're a playoff team. They're a good football team. Worth noting, Mike Vrabel got diagnosed with COVID after the game. That could affect Tampa this week as well, potentially, but likely to affect the Titans' game planning. I mean, it's a bad time for your head coach to come down with COVID for Tennessee. So that may be an issue here with some of the Chicago money, but I think it's urgency for the Bears. I wouldn't be surprised if we see more Bears money between now and kickoff. Worth noting, Julio Jones still hasn't practiced for the Titans since August 2nd. He didn't play last week, not likely to play this week. Tennessee already dealing with injuries to their star receiving core.
And once again, this is another one of those games, like you said, motivation-wise, a team that didn't look good last week, the Bears losing outright, getting blown out as a favorite against a Tennessee team that did the opposite, blew out the defending Super Bowl champs, and they were a dog. So we have a little bit of that role reversal here once again. And we have seen the Titans, brief open at 3. That's really even not a true opener. Really we could probably say 2.5, and that's where it's holding steady here as we do this show on Monday afternoon. That's a Saturday evening kickoff. Next game is that aforementioned Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the defending Super Bowl champs, obviously haven't had to do much this preseason. They open as a 4-point favorite at Houston, another team that's had a tremendously bad offseason, a lot of distractions. Looks like one of the worst teams in the league. Yet the money, Teddy, has come in a little bit on Houston. It's now down to 3.5. So the Bucs open 4. They're now a 3.5-point road favorite at Houston on Saturday night. A lot of movement on the total. 32 now up to 35.5. Fill us in on this one.
Yeah, I mean, 32 is real low. But then again, Tampa Bay hasn't done anything offensively. this preseason. Kyle Trask, 26 attempts. Ryan Griffin at 11. Gabbard had 6 on Sunday. That's 43 attempts, plus 3 other dropbacks where they got sacked. And between them, those 46 dropbacks resulted in 171 total yards for the Bucs. That's not a good passing game. Only 3.4 yards per play, only 11 first downs, only 2 of 14 on third down, 0 of 2 on fourth down. Again, they weren't playing starters. They weren't playing a lot of their backups. Tampa is a team that doesn't care a whole lot in the preseason. We'll see if that changes for this week. But here are the Houston Texans, 2-0 straight up, 2-0 against the spread. In August, what did we talk about for Houston prior to the start of the preseason? We talked about the type of players the Texans signed this offseason. A ton of low-cost defensive veterans. And look, this team went 0 for 10 on third downs. They had only 220 total yards. They didn't move the football. All right. But they were +4 in turnovers because they're playing all of these veterans on defense in the second half who understand how the coverage is. And it's making a huge difference. They've been the better team by far after halftime, even with Davis Mills struggling, even with Jeff Driscoll, who hasn't done anything so far. David Culley, quote, "We need to be more consistent. It seemed like tonight we got a few more blitzes than we got in the first game. I think it disrupted us a bit. We'll get better at that." Offensively, Houston's a little bit dicey right now. Let's see if Tampa's going to bring anything resembling their A game. If they don't, maybe you look at another under in this one. Texans, a dead nuts under team here in the preseason. The defense, that's far better than their offense.
Yeah, before the preseason started, if you'd say we're going to have the defending Super Bowl champs, Tom Brady, nothing to prove against, a Houston team that's a bottom feeder, terrible offseason, you would have thought this was the ultimate focus spot for that weaker team. But we'll see if it plays out that way, because so far Tampa's been the team that maybe wants to finish on a high note, maybe not, though. So far, though, the betting markets are telling you that's probably not the case, as this line has dropped from 4 down to 3.5. And I'm seeing 3.5s minus money, so there are some 4s out there still. Not much movement on Tampa, but as Teddy said, a good amount of money coming in on the over early, 32 up to 35.5, Tampa at Houston. Another game on Saturday night at 8 o'clock Eastern is Arizona at New Orleans. And we've seen the Saints open as a 3-point favorite in this one, total of 35. No movement on the side. It's on that key number of 3. I am seeing some juice coming in New Orleans, 3 minus 120. So it looks like it could be heading to 3.5. But more importantly, the total has gone from 35 up to 36. We have seen a little bit of movement on the over in this one, Teddy. Arizona at New Orleans.
Yeah, I don't have much to say on this one. New Orleans plays tonight, so we'll see what happens on Monday Night Football to involve them moving forward. That said, we're seeing Saints money already off an opener, despite the fact the Saints haven't played yet, because the markets want to fade Arizona. Kyler Murray, 1 of 4 for 2 yards. He took 2 sacks after the game. Said, yeah, well, I don't care much about preseason. Left tackle DJ Humphries. It would have been good to get a touchdown, but I definitely don't think the sky is falling. Arizona doesn't care. Cliff Kingsbury, not real sharp offensively, but that happens. They play good defensively. We have a lot to work on this week, yada, yada. Arizona, 2, already dealing with COVID issues. Multiple position coaches missed the game due to COVID-19 protocols. Multiple players missed the game due to COVID-19 issues. So that's certainly a concern for Arizona, and especially given the coach has the multiple key players for Arizona's come out and said, I don't like the preseason. We don't care about the preseason. I'm not surprised the Saints have taken the first few bets, but I'm not convinced that Sean Payton cares all that much about the preseason either.
We are more than halfway through. We've done 9 games, 7 to go. We got a couple more for Saturday night, 5 for Sunday this week. And just a quick reminder, though, that this is the time to get on board. Obviously, football starts. We have 7 college football regular season games this Saturday. But the best special of all right now at wagertalk.com, the best special I've seen in quite a while, is the 3-month all access, because there's a $400 discount on that. But if you sign up this week only, you get an additional 30 days at it for free. So not only are you getting 120 days in the 90-day package, but you're also getting the additional $400 discount. Just do the math here. The next 4 months gets you the entire college football season, gets you almost the entire NFL regular season, gets you a couple months of basketball, NBA, and college, gets you NHL hockey, gets you all the international sports along the way, soccer, Asian baseball, etc. The rest of Major League Baseball through the World Series in November. 90 days for just $7.99. However, that's not only a $400 discount. You're getting another month for free if you sign up this week and this week only. So it's 120 days all the way through the next 4 months. Once again, wagertalk.com, all access, every sport, every day for the lowest price you're going to get this season. Football starts this week. College football, NFL preseason finishes this week. We're going to move on Saturday night here, August 28th. One of the late games at 9 o'clock Eastern, LA Rams at the Denver Broncos. And we have seen movement in this one. Movement alert. It opened 6. It's now up to 8.5, 9. Money is coming in fairly heavy on the Denver Broncos, covering that, crossing that key number of 7, obviously. Total has not moved, though, Teddy. It opened 34, staying at 34. So this seems to be just a Bronco play here alone, with the side moving quite a bit.
Yeah, nobody wants the Rams here in the preseason. The Rams aren't playing anybody. There's not a coach in the league that has more of a reputation right now for not caring about preseason games than Sean McVay. And it showed. Bryce Perkins went the entire way for the Rams this past weekend. And, look, Steve, you watched Bryce Perkins at Virginia. I watched him. He's not an NFL quarterback. He'll never be an NFL quarterback. And yet he's getting plenty of playing times in LA. So the money's coming on Denver. Denver, of course, has looked great in their first 2 preseason games. The Bridgewater lock QB battle is on full display. Both played well again this weekend. Vic Fangio, quote, both of them, Drew and Teddy, have done well, as you guys have seen, and they made it a hard decision. So we'll give it a thorough thought, discussion with the coaches. All along, we'll continue to do that. But there's still, in theory, an ongoing QB situation in Denver. I'm not surprised at all that the Broncos have taken heavy money. Their defense has been great here in August. And, but now we're talking about 8.5, 9s out there. I don't recall a situation where I laid 8.5 or 9 in the preseason game. Maybe there was one once, but the markets have priced me out of this one. It's Denver or pass, clearly, but it's going to be a pass.
Yeah, once again, a low total like 34 as well. There's not as much wiggle room when you're laying more than a touchdown here. I'm not a fan of preseason teasers because these lines aren't nearly as accurate as they are in the regular season, but obviously there is a big difference between 8.5 and 9 because that allows you to tease it down below 3. So we're seeing some 8.5s, but I think we'll see some 9s pop as well to avoid the teaser liability. Well, once again, Broncos have been moving from -6 up to 8.5 already this week. One final game, Saturday night, 10 o'clock Eastern, the late game, LA Chargers at the Seattle Seahawks. We saw the Seahawks open as 1-point favorites. It's already up to 3.5, even 4. I'm seeing a lot of 4s out there. So Seattle from -1 up to -4. Heavy money on the Seahawks crossing that key number of 3. Total has moved a little bit from 34 up to 35. Seattle getting a lot of money, Teddy, against the Chargers so far this week.
So I just want to touch on teasers in August. Look, 6 points are worth more with totals in the 30s than they are with totals in the 50s. So in theory, the concept of playing teasers in August makes a whole lot of sense. The problem with playing some of these teasers, and again, Steve, it's legit in that sense, is that the 6 points that you're paying for, even with the low total, there's a fair bit of randomness that happens at the end, in the second half of these games. And you got to find other sides to do it with.
Right.
And of course, the key numbers. You talk about 3 being a key number. Not in August, it isn't. Key numbers, and the key numbers are 1 and 2 in the NFL. And that's the only key numbers. I mean, 7 I still care about. And like I don't care about 3, but I'd rather take a 7.5 point favorite team down to 1.5 than an 8-point favorite, 8.5 point favorite team down to 2.5, just for the month of August, where that 2 can be so important. Look, Seattle hasn't played anyone this preseason. Pete Carroll, after the game, quote, "We'll go back to a lot of the other guys that haven't played in the first 2 games, prepare them for game 1 of the regular season." That's been the plan all along. So we'll see Russell Wilson and DJ Metcalf and Chris Carson and Bobby Wagner and Quandre Diggs and Jamal Adams and all that. All those guys went through warm-ups last week and didn't play. But that was one of those quotes that was buried a little bit deep. I don't know, the odds makers saw it at the open. They're seeing it now, obviously, with the money coming in on Seattle. Of course, the Chargers, very much like the Rams, they gained only 2.6 yards per play. They were +2 in turnovers. San Fran had 13 penalties for 118 yards, and the Chargers still lost by 5. Okay, which that's what they're not a team that is caring at all about August, and Seattle appears to be taking this game seriously. The money's already come on the Seahawks. I expect more money to come on the Seahawks before.
Yeah, an excellent point once again, Teddy, about the key numbers being different in the preseason. That's another reason. Like you said, the low totals make sense, but the numbers just aren't as accurate, and the key numbers aren't the same as well, like you said. But this line still has crossed, even if 3 is not as key, like you said, 1 and 2 or more key, this line has moved from 1 to 3.5. So regardless, it has crossed some key numbers to say the least on that game. And then once again, it's the Seattle Seahawks late Saturday night getting some early money this week. Just a quick reminder, we're doing this show live on Monday. These games are all Friday, Saturday, Sunday this week. We'll have our official best bets, Teddy and myself, at wagertalk.com as the week goes. We'll post them when we see value on a daily basis for baseball and a weekly basis for football. So it's another reason to have a subscription. And now with that 3-month special, buy 3 months right now, you get the 4th month for free and a $400 discount, wagertalk.com. Let's move to Sunday. We got 5 games on Sunday, and that'll wrap up NFL Preseason 2021. First game is a matinee, 1 o'clock Eastern kickoff on Sunday afternoon, August 29th. Jacksonville at Dallas. Dallas opening as a 3-point favorite. This one's gone the other way. Dallas is now a 1.5-point favorite. Jacksonville, the over-under 35. It's up to 35.5, 36. So a little bit of money on the over, but we have seen a substantial line moves, dropping the Cowboys from 3 down to 1, 1.5. Money coming in on Jacksonville so far Sunday afternoon's game. Teddy, what's the reasons here?
Yeah, so this wasn't a line move per se. It was arbitrage. One book opened 3, one book opened 1. In terms of big books that are taking big bets, and the market decided 1.5 is the way to go, with some ones out there right now. But mostly 1.5s across the board. So it wasn't a true line move where the broader market is moving. It's 2 books taking different opinions, and the market deciding which one of those 2 books is right. Jacksonville plays tonight. I have nothing to say about them except for that we'll see how they look on national TV and what the quotes are from Urban Meyer after the game. For Dallas, we're not going to see Dak Prescott again. Ben DiNucci, a pretty rough second half against the Texans, likely to be. Rush and Gilbert are legitimately battling for the number 2 job. That gives Dallas perhaps a sense of urgency. They haven't had a whole lot of urgency so far this preseason, but it is worth noting their entire starting offensive line, their elite offensive line, was out there for 3 series last week. We see that starting offensive line prepared to play again for Dallas this week. That could be a bet-on situation.
And once again, that's games at early kickoff on Sunday afternoon. Dallas was open 3 in some spots, as Teddy said, other spots 1.5. The markets have decided on 1.5. Jacksonville, of course, plays tonight on Monday after we finish doing this show. We'll see how they look. A mid-afternoon, late afternoon game on Sunday at 4 o'clock Eastern. The Miami Dolphins at the Cincinnati Bengals. You know, Teddy, Cincinnati's been getting no love this season in the preseason, but they covered again last week. Lost the game at Washington, but covered. They were the only team that was getting a big number in week 1 at Tampa. They kept it close, actually won outright. Cincinnati opens as a 2.5-point home dog, and they remain a 2.5-point home dog. Very little movement on this. I am seeing 2.5 minus 20 on Miami, so we might see some 3s. It's hinting that way. Total also has not moved, 33.5. So Miami at Cincinnati, really no movement on the side or total in this game so far.
Yeah, and so far we've seen Zach Taylor be very non-committal. That was the official quote. He was non-committal on Joe Burrow's status for the final preseason game. We haven't seen Burrow yet. And without Burrow, this offense hasn't worked. They had only 214 yards of offense, 4.1 yards per play. The passing game was pretty inept. Jamar Chase had a real rough game. He dropped the 3rd down pass on each of the Bengals' first 3 drives, and 0 for 6 on 3rd downs in the first half for Cincy. And that, Kyle Shermer, Eric Dungy combo after halftime doesn't give me, against Miami's defense, doesn't give me a whole lot of confidence. The Dolphins, however, might be a little fat and happy here. They accomplished everything they wanted to accomplish against Atlanta this past week. The Falcons rested their starter. The Dolphins' first stringers played most of the first half. Tua, after the game, I think our operation was really good out there offensively. Got to the line of scrimmage, made their points, went out there and ran the play. Everything went great. So Miami, perhaps a little bit of fat and happy, but I like this Dolphins team in August. They're deep and they're playing defense. Cincy, we'll have to see if Burrow's going to play or not before we know which way this line's really going to move.
Yeah, once again, really no movement whatsoever on this game. Side and total holding steady at 2.5. Miami, the road favorite, 33.5. No movement either way. Other game at 4 o'clock Eastern on Sunday afternoon, 1 o'clock Pacific. Teddy's Las Vegas Raiders at San Francisco. We'll see how they do here on the road. San Francisco opens as a 1.5-point home favorite. I'm seeing both 1s and 1.5, so maybe a teeny bit of movement to the dog. 35.5 the total, pretty much holding steady. So another game here, Teddy, mid-Sunday afternoon. Really no movement on the side or total. 49ers about a 1.5 point home favorite against your Las Vegas Raiders.
Yeah, and again, we're not expecting every line to move right off the open. Certainly not for a preseason game. And most of these lines will move as the week progresses, as the information comes out. The big line moves we've seen today, the money coming in on Carolina, for example. That huge move in the Panthers game, or the other big one that we talked about was all the money coming in on Denver. Those are moves where you expect one team to show and you expect one team not to show, and the markets are saying that already. This isn't one of those games. I have no idea what the Raiders are going to do. John Gruden's happy. Quote, I like our grit. Our young people have gotten better and found a way to win 2 football games, no matter what the stakes are. It was all Nathan Peterman this past week. Peterman hit the game-winning touchdown. That said, it was a busted coverage. The guy was wide open, and prior to that, he'd thrown 2 picks. He took 3 sacks, and he looked not maybe like Nathan Peterman that one game for the Bills against the Chargers, but Nathan Peterman's not. We like him in the second half. He's not great. Raiders as a team, their first stringers went through warmups, and then most of them called it a night. They did play their top 2 draft choice. We'll see who goes this week. As for San Fran, only 66 net passing yards, 187 on the ground, 6.0 yards per carry. Oh no, that's not. Sorry, my apologies. That's the wrong notes right there. Where did my San Fran notes go? There it is. The defense. I apologize. I was giving you notes on a different game. I'm like, wait, that didn't happen. San Fran. It was Garoppolo came in and got a cup of coffee and got ripped on Twitter, and then Lance came in and got ripped on Twitter, and then he played much better after he got his feet wet. Defense held the Chargers 2.6 yards per carry, per play, I should say. And again, they're -2 in turnovers. They commit 13 penalties for 118 yards. They still won by 5. That speaks something to the 49ers' depth. And wouldn't be surprised at all if San Fran takes the money in this one. But we'll have to see what the rotations are going to be.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously Gruden would qualify as another intense individual, but he's a wily veteran. And after back-to-back wins, you wonder how much they care about this final game. And the Raiders also might be 2-0, but they didn't cover last week, against the hapless Rams. They only won that game by a point, laying almost a touchdown on the road. And they actually got outgained by 100 yards in that game. So, I know the box scores don't mean that much in the preseason, but they still got outgained by 100 yards. Theoretically probably should have lost the game if that's the case. So Raiders maybe not as dominant as the 2-0 record might indicate. We'll see how much they care about this one. We talked about a team that was dominant last week. The biggest margin of cover last week for any team was the New England Patriots. They won 35-0 against the Eagles as a 1-point dog. We talked about that earlier in the show when we talked about the Eagle game. But now the Patriots play the Giants Sunday at 6 o'clock Eastern, Sunday evening. They opened 4.5 on the road. It's now down to 3.5. And I even see a 3 out there at the Westgate. So, this line has dropped a little. The money's coming in on the Giants. 4.5 down to 3.5. It does look like that key number of 3 is starting to show. Total 33.5 is holding pretty steady. A few 34s out there now. What are your thoughts on this one? A little bit of love for the Giants early on, Teddy.
Yeah, just to clarify real quick, this is not a line move again. This is one book open 4.5, one book open 3, and we're seeing the market settle at 3.5 between the two. So any movement from this 3.5 we'll consider a line move. That early money is just arbitrage. Hey, lay 3 here, take 5 there. Long term, that's positive expectation. I have very little for this game. New England won 35-0. The Pats got their work in. I have no idea. Belichick gave us no quotes and no comments after the game to tell us what he's thinking about for this one. Certainly defensively, the Patriots defense has been great here in the preseason, and that could be a concern for the Giants. But of course, no starters played in the first half for the G-men. Daniel Jones and his first teamers sat, with the exception of the offensive line, which needs extra work, and the offensive line played, and they still weren't good. Judge has said he plans to play his starters for the first half at New England in a dress rehearsal for the opener. That tells me we're likely to see some Giants money, even though it hasn't shown fully yet. Judge, quote, the goal in New England next week will be to get the team as narrowed down as possible without making all the final roster decisions. So he's not necessarily worried about wins and losses, but the starters likely to be on the field for a full half for the Giants. I'm not convinced that's going to be the case for New England, who, again, did everything they wanted to do this past week in that 35-0 victory.
Yeah, it's interesting too. You talked about there's 2 kind of a leading indicator books that one opened 3.5, one came 4.5 about 10 minutes later. The other one went to 4.5, and then they both went to 3.5. So real cat and mouse game earlier this morning on Monday when this line first popped. So technically, once again, it's sitting 3.5. That was the opener in some spots. It was briefly a 4.5. But like Teddy said, there really hasn't been too much movement on this game. It's been more arbitrage in the marketplace. Patriots, once again, coming off a huge win last week. We'll see if they carry that momentum this week as a 3.5-point road favorite at New York. Final game of the NFL preseason goes Sunday night, 8 o'clock Eastern. The Cleveland Browns at the Atlanta Falcons. Ralph Michaels, Cleveland Browns at the Atlanta Falcons. And we saw Cleveland open as a 7-point road favorite. The market obviously thought that was too high because it's now down to 5.5. In fact, this line is moving live as we do this show Monday afternoon right here on Wager Talk TV. Within the last hour or so, we've seen it drop from 7 now to 5.5, Teddy. I'm not sure if that's something you already saw on your radar. Maybe it's popped as we've been on the show live here. Total has gone up from 35 to 36.5. So a little bit of move to Atlanta, a little bit of move to the over in the final NFL regular preseason game for 2021.
Yeah, and this one's happening as we speak, Steve. So it's not, this didn't happen before the show. It's happening while we're on air, which makes the opening line report must-watch TV every Monday morning throughout the course of the football season because these lines are moving as we're talking, and we can take advantage of stuff that you're just not going to be able to find later in the week. Let's talk about the Browns and the Falcons. Atlanta's looked pretty rough. Again, A.J. McCarron, they weren't playing Matt Ryan. A.J. McCarron got hurt early, and it was Felipe Franks the rest of the way, and Felipe Franks was god-awful, like he was in week one. They finished with 66 passing yards and 187 on the ground at 6 yards per carry. That's what I said before. I was talking about some other team. Those were Atlanta's notes I was reading. And, of course, McCarron now out for the year. I don't know that Matt Ryan's going to play this week. I don't know that I want Felipe Franks for 4 quarters, so I'm not sure what they're seeing on the Atlanta side here, although the Falcons have rested their starters and the Dolphins' first stringers played the entire first half. This time, I think we may see more from Atlanta starters. At the same time, there's talk that Kevin Stefanski may play his starters. Don't know yet. So this is one we'll have to see. Obviously, the early money coming in towards Atlanta, who's looked pretty god-awful, and the markets are saying Falcons have something to prove at home in the finale. The Browns not likely to play starters at all, hence the early money for the underdog in this one.
Yeah, the Falcons did have a 3-0 lead last week before losing 37-17. So they've made a 53-yard field goal, so they had that going for them. But yeah, this is a pretty bold opening line on the road, week 3, which could be meaningless for a lot of teams to make a 7-point road favorite. So understandable why that has gone down to 5.5 as we do this show live Monday afternoon. And once again, each and every Monday, Drew Martin will be back with Teddy Covers each and every Monday this year during the NFL season for the opening line report. As he mentioned, must-watch TV live. If you do miss it, if for some reason you have a regular 9-to-5 job and you can't watch it, shame on you. Monday through Sunday, 7 days a week, 20. Let us know your thoughts on this final week of the NFL preseason, who you like, your play-on-play against teams. And most importantly, check myself out, Steve Merril, and Teddy Covers each and every day at wagertalk.com. Great 3-month special right now, all sports every day. And if you sign up this week only, right now, the clock is ticking. You get an additional month for free, which basically gets you the rest of 2021, every sport, every day. Teddy, thank you for letting me fill in for Drew today. I enjoyed doing this with you. Any final closing thoughts as we head into the final week of the NFL preseason?
This is my closing thoughts. Thanks for tuning in. Again, we'll do it every single Monday throughout the course of the football season. And in preseason, I can't do it as well because the line's going to move based on the info. In the regular season, I'm going to do a pretty good job of telling you guys where these lines are going to move on Monday mornings. Do I bet this now? Do I wait till later in the week? What are the markets looking at? Why does this line look so weird? That's info you're going to find every Monday morning right here on the opening line report here on the Wager Talk YouTube channel. That's all I got, buddy. Have a great day. Have a great night. You can check out my plays at $9 Monday over at WagerTalk and SportsMember.com this evening, including a selection for Monday Night Football this evening.